So good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Live at the Theater Talent Showcase. My name is Marty Angstreich. I'm the founder of the Facebook group and, as usual, your host for this evening's festivities. For those of you familiar with the group, we started this back in April after COVID-19 shut down all the theaters across the world. And I was looking for a way to give my fellow thespians and theater folk a chance to perform on a virtual stage, at least, for people so that they can continue to practice their craft and have some way of having an outlet for their talents. The group has grown significantly since day one, and over the last 7 months, we've produced a number of different events, including quite a few of these live at the Theater Talent Showcase, where most of those have been open mic nights, where some of our most talented members have come on live and sung for you, our audience. Additionally, back in June, we did another first, and that was our very first Broadway Masterclass. And that featured at the time the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne's cast of the off-Broadway show Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. It was a wonderful event, and we had a virtual cast reunion of over 12 people from the group who came on and spent a couple hours talking about their experiences. So tonight, I am thrilled and absolutely so happy to be able to bring this young lady to our stage. She was one of the panelists when we did that live Broadway Masterclass. She played Bielka in the production of Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish, both downtown and off-Broadway. And now she is an authoress, if that is an actual word. And she comes to our stage today to talk about her book, and she's brought with her a couple of her very special friends from the cast. So without further ado, if I can actually get this to work. Let's see if I can get all these videos to work. Ah, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our stage Samantha Hahn, Raquel Nobile, and Jody Snyder. You take yourself off mute, ladies. I can't do it. I can mute you. I can't unmute you. Beautiful. Hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is such a treat for us. Really appreciate it. I know you folks probably had, to cut short a trip to your family room or something, and it was tough traffic getting here, and getting back's just going to be a bear, but I appreciate it though anyway. So what I'd like to do to really get started, before we even jump into any of the fiddler things and the stories and Samantha about your book, I would love to just go around the table and just have the three of you introduce yourselves. Tell our at-home audience a little about yourself, your background, anything you'd like to share before we get into the deeper conversations, just so everyone has a chance to get to know you and get comfortable. So Samantha, I'm of course going to start with you if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Samantha Hahn. You can call me Sammy. I go to Manhattan School of Music for musical theater, and I'm a senior this year on Zoom Academy, which is really fun. Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish was my off-Broadway debut, and it was the most amazing experience ever. And I wrote a book about it, which you should all get. And I do voiceovers, and I have a lot of big dreams for Broadway and the future, and these are two of my best friends from the show who I look up to a lot also.
Thank you, Sammy. So Raquel, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Raquel. I am from New Jersey, and I love doing Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. It was one of the best experiences so far in my theater career. I am an opera singer, but switched to music theater. I've been doing a lot of that kind of stuff, which is super fun. I like to do crossword puzzles. I don't know. I'm a fun girl.
Yes, you are. Thanks, Raquel. Thank you so much for being here. And Jody, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'm Jody Snyder. I played from Sarah in the Yiddish production. It was one of the best experiences of my life, and these two girls made it super special. It was such a good time. I'm from Chicago. I'm currently in Chicago, and yeah, that's what we got.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask a very obvious question. I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times before. COVID-19 just cut everybody off at their legs, and I know how difficult it is, personally and emotionally and financially and everything else, especially for the theater community. So I'm just curious, what are each of you doing to kind of keep your sanity during these months? I mean, are you doing virtual theater? We talked a little bit before. One of my students just had her virtual theater production this weekend. So are you doing any of that? What are you doing to keep yourselves busy? Jody, we'll start with you since we ended with you before.
I haven't done any virtual theater yet. I did do a reading of a short play that Sammy wrote. That was really fun. That was my only experience with virtual theater so far, and that was a great one. But I sing almost every day for at least a little bit, and I'm trying to read, and I definitely study a lot of acting, watching TV a lot, and also just, trying to spend a lot of time to recharge with my family, which I don't normally get to do. So that's really nice. And so that's kind of how I'm keeping the energy positive.
Thanks. Sammy, you're full of surprises. Now you're a playwright too. We're going to have you back when your play hits Broadway.
I'm ratting her out.
Need a music director? Give me a call. I'm available. Raquel, why don't you go next?
Sure. I also got to read Sammy's play, which was
I'm the only one who hasn't read Sammy's play.
It was a blast. It's this awesome 10-minute short play, and it's so cool. It's a very fun story. I had another couple of friends. I did readings for them. So a lot of people are exercising some creative, backgrounds here. So I'm happy to be part of that. And I also get to teach, which is so much fun. So I fill my days with hours and hours of teaching. And a lot of my students are doing virtual theater, so I'm just prepping them all for that. And that's basically how I'm spending my time. I've been living with my mom, which is so fun. We watch Jeopardy every single night. We're obsessed with it. So as soon as we log off here, we're going to turn on an episode of Jeopardy, a nice 30-minute nighttime episode.
Thanks, Raquel. So, Sammy, let's see. You're writing books. You're writing plays. Are you, creating world peace? Anything else that we should know about?
I wrote a one-act play that I got a lot of my fiddler friends to do, and it was really fun. We just read it over Zoom.
Sweet.
It was really nice. That was amazing. And I'm home with my family too. And my mom and I are watching Grey's Anatomy, so that's really amazing. Thank you. And I text Jody about it, about what scenes come on. I'm like, Jody, this is crazy. And I'm doing online school, which is a whole adventure, and we're doing The Mystery of Edwin Drood this year, so that's it's really fun. It's really crazy to do all the recording and everything.
So Sammy, I know, and we'll get into it a little bit about your experience with Fiddler and what you had to do, because obviously from the book and from our previous conversations, you're a little familiar with that. But are you now officially a senior? Are you a junior again in Manhattan? Where are you a senior this year?
Yeah, I'm a senior.
Congratulations. Great. So very sweet. So Sammy, I'm going to put you on the spot ever so slightly. And as I mentioned in this to the group, this is off the cuff. This hasn't been rehearsed. We spent 15 minutes just chatting beforehand. No scripts, no nothing. So whatever happens, happens. So I'm going to apologize or promise, depending on how you look at it. So Sammy, I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm going to tell you why. So one of my youngest voice students, Colton, he's just turned 8. He just had his 8th birthday. And he was so excited when I told him that I had Trinket the Unicorn, who's going to be on my Zoom broadcast. So I'm going to put you on the spot because he tuned in. He made his mom make sure to join the live stream tonight. Would you sing Happy Birthday in your best Trinket voice for us? Would you sing Colton a happy birthday? Come on, you can do this.
Okay, hold on. Let me think. It's been a while since I've done any trinketing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Just bought me brownie points with Colton and his mom. Thank you, I appreciate that. Actually, it was a surprise to them also because he was so excited to be on. So I appreciate that. All right, ladies, I want to dive right in, and I want to talk about the book. And that's going to lead us into fiddler conversation and jump in with anything you want to add and such. But Sammy, the most logical place, and I too have the book. I have it on my Kindle.
Nice.
Downloaded the minute that I saw that you advertised. Matter of fact, 10 seconds after you posted it, I think I messaged you and said, congratulations, Mazel Tov. You want to come on the show and promote the book, please, please. And you were so gracious, and all of you have been so wonderful to do this. But you know, when I saw that you'd written the book, before I got a chance to download it, I kind of was trying to figure out what kind of book this was going to be. So was it going to be more of a novel, like you've written, you know, the tell-all book about what happened from inception till closing? And I know that you had done interviews with the cast, so maybe you were going to tell it in your voice, and then you'll put in quotes from the cast. And then I was wondering, because I've read other books by, you know, other folks who've done Broadway or Broadway authors, and they've done very anecdotal books. So there'd be a section like On the Road, and they'd have 20 different actors from 20 different shows, you know, give a couple pages about their experience on the road. But what I really loved about your book, and just for everyone's knowledge, when we're done, I'm going to ask Sammy to please post the links where you can purchase the book. I know that they can get it on Amazon, and I think probably BarnesandNoble.com and things like that. It's a must read, especially if you are involved in theater, or you are a younger person who is loving theater and wants to make theater their life, or you're a fiddler fan, or if you just want to support the arts and the up-and-coming artists, you need to buy this book because it's a great read. So Sammy, when I started reading it and I saw what you did, it really felt more like a memoir to me, because you know, each and every chapter dealt with a different aspect about life with Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. And again, it was a National Yiddish Theater Folksbane production that started downtown at the Holocaust Museum and then moved uptown. But what I loved about it is that you started every chapter with your voice and your experience in that. So if we pulled everything else out, it would be like reading Sammy's diary for 18 months. And then it's sort of like you left a couple pages in between, and then, you know, somebody jumped in and put a little thing in there also about that. So I love that. But the most logical question is, you know, what drove you to write the book? Did you know going into, once you got the part for Bielka, did it, you know, it seemed to you, I'm going to get a book out of this and a book deal, or was it something that happened just, you know, organically? What brought this to fruition?
No, it was totally kind of came out of nowhere. The story goes that a couple months into the run uptown, I guess backstage, you know, you get, after you're doing a lot of shows, you run out of things to do backstage at intermission, and we always played games and stuff like that. But one day Raquel came in with this new phone that had this really cool camera on it, and she was like taking these pictures, and she let me play with it because I was like bored and I wanted to play with the phone. And so I was going around taking pictures of everybody, and I just kind of randomly thought of, oh, that'd be really cool if they sold something at the merchandise stand that had pictures of people and then like interviews with them from backstage. And so I started interviewing people, kind of not knowing what it was going to be. And I started with these two. And I think I did Raquel's first, and then I did Jody's. And for Jody's, Raquel and I were both just like sitting with her, and we were all kind of talking. And Jody started telling these like amazing stories about her whole audition experience. That's like such a great part of the book. And I started thinking about my audition experience, and I decided that I wanted to put like my stories in it too. So that's when I started thinking of having both of them incorporated into whatever book thing I was making.
Very cool. So did you do this old school pen and paper? Did you record it on the iPhone? I mean, how did you gather all of this? Or did you ask everybody to write that section for you?
No, I wrote interview questions, and I recorded it on my phone. And this year I just got this new thing on my computer that actually converts like speech to text, and I was like, oh, if I had that last year, that would be so helpful. But I just recorded people on my phone, and then I would go home, and then I would like type that up at 2 a.m. and then I would bring it back to them and show them what it looked like typed out, and see if they want to, you know, make any edits. Because when people talk, I guess people don't really talk in full sentences, so that was really funny to find out.
Very cool. Very cool. So, so Raquel, you know, when Sammy came to you with this idea and these questions and such, Any hesitation, any concern about, kind of putting your voice to this?
Nah, not at all. We were all in such good hands with Sammy. She's so articulate and like makes the best. Makes she like the way that she has handles the situation is just perfect. So like we all knew we were in good hands with her, and she always like she ran everything by us, and she sent us our snippets and asked if we had any notes on them and stuff like that. So no hesitation. She was
Very
good
sweet.
like that.
Good, good. So Sammy, yeah, again, there's going to be some questions when I ask that I'm just going to have to ask. So, in reading the book, this was a large cast, right? There's about 25 people in the cast, plus the orchestra, plus the creative staff. So this is a very big production. But what I noticed is there isn't something from everyone in the book. So I'm just wondering, were there some people who just, and you don't have to name names by all means, but were there just some people who just didn't want to be included, didn't want to be bothered, didn't have the time? I'm just curious. Did you have thousands of pages and you just had to pull the ones that you felt the most, secure with? How did you edit the book from that standpoint?
Well, first, I just wanted it to be just like the current cast I thought of is what I was doing, because I was writing it like in the moment. So I made sure to get everybody from the current cast. And then I think like we had a new swing coming on that I was like, oh, okay, well, like he was in the show before and I want to get him too. And then I started thinking like, oh, all of these like amazing stage managers and people, I wanted to bring them in too. And then I thought of the creative team, and I think like there's so many people I wish I could have added to it, but I wanted it to be a book where you could see like the storyline through too, so I didn't want it to be overflowing with, so many things. But like if I could go back and add a bunch of people, like as soon as I sent it out to get published, I was like, oh, I should have got Jamie Beth Margolis, the casting director. Like how cool would it have been to hear it from her side of the story? And people who were in the show downtown, I wanted to reach out to, but it's hard when you reach out to some people and you don't want somebody who doesn't feel like being in the book, who's not in the show anymore, to feel like they're the only ones not in the book.
Sure.
So,
Well, when you reach the million mark of selling it, you can do the next revision and you can have the enhanced version, and then we'll have to all go out and buy the book again. It's as simple as that. Keep that cash flow going. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned about Kat, and actually Kat's story is one of my favorite in there, where she talks about how she just kind of jumped all over Joel Grey in the at one point in there. Love it, love it. For those who haven't read the book yet, and you should and you will, I'm telling you to buy this book. There's a story about how Kat had just had her, I guess it was her first child, I guess about 3 months into the process when this all started, and she's there and she's calling, she's calling cues and she's checking on this and she's pumping because her child was 3 months home with her husband, and she's pumping, and Joel came over, asked her like a very innocent question, and she just kind of attacked him and then felt like this big afterwards. But it's hysterical because it's just real life. And I think the beauty part about that story is that she kind of realized it, but Joel was like, okay, all right, well, see you later, no big deal. And people move on. But yeah, I mean, all the stories are just terrific. So Jody, when you got involved, I want to jump into the show. So tell us a little about the process, how you actually got involved in the production in the first place.
I really wanted to be in any production of Fiddler that I could. It touches on this in the book. I have a big messy day story, but basically I really wanted to audition, and a lot of things going on in the universe the day I wanted to audition for it were not lining up, and so by the end of the day I decided that it wasn't in the cards for me. And the next day I was at one of my real person jobs, and I was there really early in the morning. I was supposed to go catch a flight, and one of my friends calls me and is like, you have to get to the Actors Equity Building. They're seeing non-union actors. Like, you have to get here this minute. And luckily I worked 20 blocks away from the audition studio, and I took my suitcase for my flight and my book of music, and I ran in, my workout outfit or whatever, and I changed my shirt in the hallway, probably not allowed, and hopped in line like this chaotic mess. And I'm sure everybody in line was like super distracted because I was super crazy. But I guess all that energy was helpful. Maybe, I don't know, but it definitely worked out in my favor. But I didn't actually hear for like 2 weeks after that audition. So I kind of had figured that it was, I was like, that was an exciting story of getting to an audition. So that I'll tell that as a really fun story. And then like, little did I know, and I didn't know it was directed by Joel. And so who knew that my next like great story was that I got to be in an audition room with him, which was like, I called my Nana and my grandma, and I was like, if I don't get this part, it's fine. I was in a room with Joel Grey for 2.5 minutes. So, the really happy ending of the story is that I got to do the show with him, but I was going to be pleased no matter what, and just thrilled that I could get into any audition room at that point in my life as well.
So maybe that's your secret weapon, right? You show up frantic to every audition. You change. You throw all the other girls out there, that are online for the audition, into a frenzy. They blow it. You walk in calm and cool because actually you're fine. You're just acting like a crazy lady. And you walk in, you're like, hi. And you just do your thing. I like that.
You have to be actually chaotic. You have to feel the chaotic inside for it to work.
Nice. When you got the part, so you played Frumasara?
Yes.
Okay. So were you cast into that role? Were you cast into Swing first and then moved into the role? How did that evolve?
I was just cast as Frumasara.
Okay.
I wasn't understudying anybody at the beginning. It was just an offer for Frumasara.
Okay. So I'm going to stick with you, Sammy. I'm coming back to you. I promise. I know this is your thing. I'm sorry. But every production and almost everyone that I know in theater, or anyone that I've worked with in theater, has done a production of Fiddler at some point. I mean, it is like the penultimate show to do anywhere, on Broadway, on tour, through community theater, regional theater. It's just the story for all times. But traditionally, Frumasara is not young, a person like yourself, right? And the thing I noticed about this cast is that, a much younger cast and much younger people cast as much older parts. So I was just wondering, was that of a concern of yours in doing that? And what was it like being up on top of somebody's shoulders 8 nights a week? That, for me, I would die. I have a terrible fear of heights. Standing on this chair would put me into like a coma. So spend a few minutes if you would.
Sure. So, oh my gosh, the first half of that.
I said about at your age playing a much older part.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did get, because after my initial audition, I was given a call back for the role of Frumasara. I didn't go in initially auditioning for Frumasara. I just sang a song and I was like, hope they pick something good or anything. And so I was called back for Frumasara, and I get to the audition and I look at the breakdown and it says like Frumasara, like 40 and above. And I was like, that's not great for me right now. I was like, that's not a good sign, but I got a call back for it. So I was like, I'm going to do the very best I can to put any sort of age and, ghostly vibes into my voice and into my character. And makeup is a great thing. And I learned that through the run of the show. And, when I was deciding, the age of her for myself, I was thinking like, who knows what you look like when you die and become a ghost? Like maybe if you die at the age of 25, you'll look 25 forever, just really pale and kind of like, a little stale and gross, but like still like you still got a little youth in you, maybe. I don't know. But again, I was aged well with the makeup and the outfit and the height, because nobody really cares how old you are when you're like 10 feet tall. So they don't ask questions. They just go over and over. Yeah, exactly.
Was being up there shows a week, was that, I mean, do you love heights? Do you ride roller coasters for a living? I mean, is that your thing? Because like I said, it would never happen with me. I'd have to give up a shot. That'd be done.
I'm afraid of heights. I do not like heights
Okay.
typically. But I do like acting, and there's a lot of things you'll do to get a great role and be on stage. And I didn't audition. They didn't tell me in the audition room that was going to be that. I just really wanted the job. And then on the first day, they're like, and that's what you're going to do. You're going to sit this many feet in the air. And so you just say yes, and you look to make it as safe as possible. And the creative team was looking to make it as safe as possible. And I really, really had a lot of trust in my partners. And but it is a lot to think about. It's a big physical demand, and and some days it doesn't feel as fun as others, depending on a lot of different factors.
Right.
But a lot of the time it was a really cool experience. And I also felt like it was so unique. Like not a lot of people get to experience that 8 times a week. So I really appreciated the experience of saying that I did that and wearing that huge dress and becoming very close with my legs and doing all that. So I
never leave home without them anymore, right?
No, I would do it again and again and again. I loved
Sweet.
it.
So, Sammy, what's in the book, and I alluded to this before, in the book you talked about some of the sacrifices that you made and some of the decisions that you had to make in regards to staying with the show after the initial run, and then one of the last chapters in the book has the story about how, and I did not know this, that you had left for a short bit and then had come back when the show moved uptown. But a lot of our group members are in their teens and early 20s, and they are, getting their sights set on where they're going to be and doing the Broadway thing and such. And I'd love for you to kind of recount a little bit about that for everybody, about how that whole process happened and the kind of decisions you had to make. Because good, bad, or indifferent, I love the fact that your family really just supported you and just made you make that decision, and that was sweet. But I'd love for you to just kind of recount the story for the audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Before I answer that, Jody is like the best Fruma Sarah ever. And before this production, I had seen like other versions of Fiddler, and I was always terrified of the Fruma. And then Jody comes out, and I was like, she's just like the most talented. It's just like you watch it and you're like, this is talented, this is funny, this is just like amazing. So
There you go.
like, you transformed my Fruma experience.
Thank you, Sammy. No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
With school, it was, Fiddler was supposed to be a summer show, so we all thought we were only going down for the summer. And for me, I had actually booked my first summer stock show, which I had to say no to do Fiddler, which I was so excited about. And then I was supposed to go back and return to the beginning of my junior year. And I decided to go back when the show kept extending to school after talking to like everyone in my life about it. And it was just the hardest decision to make, because it's the choice between doing what you really want to do and kind of doing what is on your path, and also something that you want to be done. And just it was hard for me to think about the timing of it and being like, okay, I do really want to go to school and I really want to graduate college, and this is my chance to do that. And then also thinking about this amazing thing that was happening to me and wondering, okay, how will I feel if the show only gets extended for another week and then I'm not at school and I'm not in another show. And so I ended up going back to school, and I was both glad and not glad that I made that decision. But everyone was so supportive, and like my castmates would always just like welcome me back, like just to hang out, and I got to see the show, which was so cool. And then when it came time I got the call about the transfer, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's another huge decision to make. But at that point, I for some reason that decision was a lot easier. Like I felt it in my gut that I knew I had to do it, even if the show was gonna close in like a day. And I don't know, I think I learned a lot about, just how everybody kind of has their own path, and no matter whichever way I would have gone, I would have been fine. I would have been in the show and I would have gone to school either way, no matter how the timeline worked out. So I felt like I kind of learned that afterwards. But it was really hard. And then for the transfer uptown, I remember I was still making the decision about it, and I wasn't allowed to talk to my castmates about it. And I remember one night we went to see this show, and I remember I was sitting with Raquel, and we were talking about it, and she was talking about it. Wait, I don't really remember.
I was terrified because I was like, they're gonna transfer without me because I'm too old to be playing a 12-year-old. Like it's already a stretch. It's just gonna be, and I'm like so distraught over this. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting cast when they transfer. If they transfer, there's no way. And Sammy's sitting there like on the news, like she's got it on her phone. She knows it, and you did not peep though, I will say.
I was like, it was literally like 2 hours after I got the call. I was sitting next to you and hearing you talking about that, and I was like, oh my gosh. That was hard.
So, Raquel, most of the sisters, recounted a lot of how you folks were really mishpacha, you were really family. And actually, it's interesting to see how some of to read about how some of the traditions that you five got together, in before the show started and things like that, became traditions that ran throughout. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because one of the things that every cast hopes for is that they can actually develop as a family, right? They're a unit, they work together, they feed off each other, they are, most of the casts that I know, the closest they come to being family is they argue a lot like a family does, right? But, in this, and I don't want to say it was like a big love fest that, that I read about in this book, but it was clear that, the five sisters really got about as close as five sisters could get in real life. So can you kind of talk about that in the relationships, with that? And I know Sammy was, of course, the younger sisters. Without her, you'd be the youngest. So thank you, Sammy, for allowing her not to have to be the youngest in the show. But just to talk a little bit about the relationship and the interactions with the other young ladies that played your sisters.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, we spent so much time and went through so many challenges as far as rehearsal periods, and then we spent almost 2 years playing sisters, and so we're all in the dressing rooms together, and we're experiencing life challenges too, and like going through breakups and meeting people, and familial, like outside, anything outside. So you're there all the time, and then you're expressing all of your emotions on stage. You just kind of I don't think it would have been possible to not just become so close. And so it was really interesting too, kind of how every one of us fell into such a stereotypical role as youngest sister, as middle sisters, as oldest sister. I mean, Rachel was there as the oldest sister for all of us. It was crazy how we all like looked up to her, and we would always go to her with our problems. And if one of us was having a problem with another one of us, we would always go to her for it, and we always were going to her. She was such the older sister. Sammy was such the little sister. Like, we spoiled her, we took her out, we like forced her to come along with us. We threw her a huge, when she turned 21, we threw her a huge birthday bash. So it was like, and we all kind of had our own little relationships within that too. Like, obviously me and Sammy were super close because we were scene partners the entire show. There was maybe one moment when we weren't on stage together, and it was in the dark when we were just changing set pieces. Like, every other time we spent every single second on stage together, and then like 80% of the time off stage we spent together too. So we had our own bond, but then Sammy and Rachel had their own bond, and the bond that I had with Rosie Jo and the bond that I had with Stephanie, like, we all had such different relationships within that, which was really, really cool. And then what was even cooler still is that everybody was coming in as covers and as understudies, and so when someone came in, like, Jody understudied me, and then she also understudied Chava. So like the dynamic, and she also studied, she covered Bielka too, so like when she came in to play my little sister, the dynamic was so different from when she came in to play my older sister. And so it was really fun riffing off of that and kind of just like having these connections off stage, and just being able to present them on stage. Like Rachel would play with us all the time on stage, the girl who played Seitel. All the time she would like nudge us, and she would look at us and smirk at us and like shoot us little, you watch it kind of thing. And just exactly the same way she would do, just in any regular day. So it was really cool having that bond with everyone, something you never would experience.
Which is wonderful. But in the same sense, sisters can also get on each other's nerves, right? So I would imagine that it wasn't always 24 hours a day. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, I love you, right? So when you have to go on stage and, maybe, and I don't know if there's anything to recount, but maybe there was an argument between two people. It could have been the stupidest little thing, but that has to go away when you hit the stage, right? You can't bring that you're really PO'd at somebody, on with you on the stage. So did any of that type of thing ever happen where it just kind of got a little dicey and all of a sudden everyone had to just, all of a sudden, just put on I saw the show with the Go-Go's, and they were talking about this thing doing Robo Go-Go. It was like, even though they were mad at each other, they'd get on the stage and they'd be like, oh, we're Go-Go's. And they'd smile a lot, just, and then after off the stage, they'd want to kill each other. So any of that going on, or was it just
Yeah, like you can and you can't. You can bring things onto a stage with you, and you can't. There are some emotions, but sometimes, like, I feel like maybe we would let it inform the way that we were acting. Like if there was a particular day when one sister was having a really hard day and just like didn't want, because that's how in real life this show was so true to life. I feel like it was. The emotions were so raw and so real, and I think the audience really connected with that feeling, that everything was kind of so realistic in that sense, emotionally at least, that I think that we kind of allowed room for that additional emotional baggage to be present on stage. Sometimes, at least, there were some times when it wasn't even necessarily like a rift between sisters, but it could have just been something that had happened in the outside world. Like there was a lot of adversity happening, especially in the Jewish community while we were performing the show. And there was one time that we were all just like so in such a strange place, and it really informed that the way the show was that evening. And it was not necessarily a better or a worse performance, but it definitely was different, and it carried different feelings. So I think a lot of the time, if anyone did have any sort of outside baggage, it just kind of made the show a little different.
Okay.
But of course, there are those moments where you kind of have to just like throw it away as soon as you get on stage. I feel like we definitely experience that every so often.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, we kind of work through it, I think.
And I think there were a couple stories, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but there were a couple stories about performances on the day, and I think it was it the Tree of Life synagogue in Philly, right? When that atrocity happened, again, as I said in the beginning, Fiddler is one of those shows that transcends ages and religions and race. I mean, it is something that everyone can find something in, no matter what. And I remember when that happened, and how it affected us outside, but for you folks living that story about the atrocities and the pogrom and the things that happened, and then for that to happen, it's got to just affect you profoundly. And it's amazing how to be able to go on and kind of just suck that in and just do what you have to do. But it was another one of those incidents that just kind of changed the landscape. Really sad, but I know there are a couple stories in there, so if you buy the book, you can read those stories too. I am also going to take a quick pause, and Sammy, I got a question for you, but I am going to take a pause and just say, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask any of these three young ladies, you can put it into the chat section underneath the video feed on Facebook. And we will try to get to some of those questions, before we close out tonight. So feel free to post those, and I'll try to keep a glance. I'm glancing over here every now and then, just make sure the feed is still working, because the internet, not my friend all the time. So Sammy, I'm gonna keep digging down the rabbit hole. So what about the stuff we don't know about that didn't get into the book? So were, and I touched on that just a little bit about the sisters, and that relationship and such. Every cast, has that one person who just isn't a happy camper. And again, you don't have to name names if you'd like to. That's fine. I'm taking notes. I'll send emails later. But any of the backstory stuff, and I'm not looking for you to dish as much as just curious. The type of stuff that doesn't go into a book like this because there's so much. Cast romances. I mean, that kind of stuff that just would be interesting to know about. For those people who were smart enough. I mean, who were lucky enough to join in with us tonight.
There are some cast romances. I think some you read the love stories in the book. Some I don't think are in the book, but maybe came after the book was written. They're like,
Do you know
Sounds like.
Do you know something
Right?
you don't know?
No. Anyway, we we really are such like a family group, and like everyone's just kind of always hanging out with everyone since the first day. So I feel like we just really hit that bonding, and it kind of carried us through because we all love doing the show so much. So when you know that everybody's there and everybody really wants to be there and everybody knows how important the story is to tell, like as soon as we start like tradition, we're all just there for each other.
The hands and the stomping and
Yeah, exactly. It was that kind of feel backstage too. And there were times when like there's frustrations and people would be like, having a hard day and stuff like that. But then I think like Raquel said, like we really just like you just feel people like I know when I was having a bad day backstage, I just felt people like sending their good energy to me on stage. Like there was a little moment with Raquel at the end when we're going to the end, and we're going on a train and a boat, and there were some times that I was having a really bad day, and it was really hard for me to like get all that joy in that really sad moment, and she would just be there giving me like all of her joy so that I could get through that. So
Sweet. That and emergency chocolates, right?
yes, and emergency chocolates, Kayleen, shout out.
Very cool. I could see it now. Bielka gets on there. We're going on the damn boat again. We're going on the boat. Yay! That's wonderful. Thank you. So Sammy, first off, before I forget, congrats on getting your equity card, right? The show got you your equity card. So good for you. Someday when the world starts spinning again, you too?
All three of us.
All three of you? All right, hang on a second. Hang on. Let's see. Where's it? We sing "Wish You Mazel Tov," baby. So that's very exciting. So that's terrific. So hopefully when things return, and we'll be able to see you guys in so many more things, which will be very exciting. I will be out there to cheer you on, God willing, until we get through this thing. But Sam, you said this was your first, Broadway, off-Broadway production, and you talked a little bit about the voiceover thing. I'm just curious because I didn't read this book because it's pre-Fiddler, but what brought you to acting? What brought you to want to be on the stage? What brought you to theater? Going to Manhattan School of Music, that's a big commitment, right? This is my thing for life. But, what got you there? And what kind of shows did you do prior to getting to Fiddler? Community theater, school shows, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I loved singing since I was really little, and as a family, we had a lot of music in our house. We would always see Broadway shows. Me and my sisters would perform the shows that we went to see. When we got home, we would, try to do it. And my mom was always trying to get me into sports, but I just always loved doing theater. And I started taking classes at a place called Annie's Playhouse in my hometown, New Jersey. And I just loved doing it a lot. And I just loved seeing shows, and I loved listening to soundtracks and watching Into the Woods on YouTube, and I really wanted to do it, and I didn't like school that much, so I kind of knew that I wanted to go to musical theater school. I think when I told my parents I wanted to go to college for musical theater, they were like, "Oh, she wants to go to college. Okay." That was like great. So, yeah, it's always been a passion of mine.
Very cool. And did you do? When did you do the voiceover stuff? So I talked about Trinket before. Did you do other voiceovers as well? And how did you get into that?
That was my first voiceover. It was one of my first voiceover auditions and my first voiceover callback. So it was really,
Holy
really
moly!
exciting. Yeah, it was like I had no clue what was going on. I've learned so much about voiceovers since then that I'm like, how did I even manage doing this in the first place? I don't know. But it was the coolest thing ever, and that was my senior year of high school, I
Oh
think.
wow!
Yeah, junior or senior year of high school, or somewhere in there. I started doing that, and yeah, at first my mom and dad still had to take me in there and had to wait for me in the waiting room because I was still a minor. But by the end of it, I was going on my own and going from college classes and stuff like that.
Very very cool. Where so you grew up in New Jersey?
Yeah,
Okay, so you were
I
doing
started
this what?
Raquel.
I'm a transplant, Brooklyn, born and raised. I'm then Jersey guy. So was that a big thing for you when you were in high school that you were doing this and your voice was on TV and you had an agent and all that such? Was that a really big thing and for your friends and such?
Um, Not really. I got picked on a lot for my voice in school, so I think my theater friends that outside of school were very excited and happy about it. But it, it definitely was like for me kind of transformative in the way that I was like I was in myself being like my voice is really cool actually, and I can do these really cool things with it. But I didn't necessarily feel comfortable going around the school like talking about it. Um, but I would now.
Well, but all those people making fun of you, now you're walking around saying, I got an equity card. Yeah, 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 I got it. Jody,
Something,
what was that? I'm sorry, Sam.
something like that.
I like it. I like it. Karma. Jody, what about you? What was the first show that you ever performed in?
Like ever, like when I was
Yeah, yeah,
tiny.
yeah. Ever, forever.
I was in Alice in Wonderland at the Northwood Park District, and I was Alice.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, big lead. And that kind of sparked it. I've always loved singing, and so my parents threw me into theater as well. And yeah, that's what really sparked it. And then I was really lucky to have a really great high school theater program. And I did a lot of great high school shows and a lot of choir groups. I was super involved, a lot of comedy groups as well there. And they really helped me to prepare for auditioning for college. I went to Syracuse for musical theater.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And and that's really what kind of shaped me into the musical theater artist that I am today.
Very, very cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
Raquel, I'm going to ask you the same question. Your
Sure.
your first show.
The first show I think I ever did was Treasure Island at Somerset Valley Playhouse. This little teeny, used to be an old schoolhouse.
I know exactly where it is.
Yes, do you?
I
Elmhall
do.
Road. Best
do.
theater ever. I played a little, villager, and we had to speak in Pig Latin. And so that's on my resume. I am K at and lay. Slay.
Which sounds an awful lot like Yiddish if you kind of
A
squint
little
a little
bit, yeah. I could literally slip into Pig Latin in a heartbeat. Like I'm so good at it. It's the weirdest thing, but that's why from Treasure Island. And after that, I really wanted to do opera my whole life. Like 8 years old, I wanted to sing opera. So
Holy moly.
my parents were really, really supportive. So they would take me to Westminster Choir College on weekends, and I would take courses and take lessons. But of course, there was no real roles for me to do. So I just did a lot of studying and a lot of lessons. And then I went to Manhattan School of Music, and I got my graduate degree there. That's Sammy. Actually, I feel like Sammy and I had like maybe 1 or 2 interactions there. We saw each other on stage, and then when we were in the audition room, she said, "Hi, I'm Samantha Hahn. I go to Manhattan School of Music," and I nudged her, and I was like, "I went there too." we had a bond right away. Yeah, so that's kind of what my whole life I wanted to do opera. So
Sweet.
I loved it.
So, did anyone, any of the three of you, do a production of Fiddler before this production?
No.
I did.
You did. What
In
part? Did you?
8th grade, I played Huddle in 8th grade.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you if you were 10 feet in the air again on that. You know.
They cut for Sarah in the 8th grade version of Fiddler on the Roof, and the
Too
Fiddler
scary.
Junior. There is no dream.
Too scary.
No dream. She's
No
too
dream.
she's too controversial.
Too controversial. Too scary. No.
This is strictly a G-rated production. No tall ladies screaming their heads off.
Yeah, and it can't be 3 hours either, so we got to cut something.
So you played Huddle.
Yeah.
Sweet. And when was that? I'm sorry. I know you said
When I was in 8th grade.
8th grade. Nice. I did Fiddler. My first production of Fiddler I acted in was in 7th grade, and I played Tevye. So
Cool.
I'm still waiting. So you ladies that are from New Jersey, I auditioned a few years back for Plays in the Park in Edison for their production of Fiddler on the Roof. Did not get the part. I am still damaged to today. I talk about this today, and it's painful.
You missed out.
But someday I'm going to do that. Now, as Steven said, you know, he did Fiddler when he was younger, and now he finally got a chance to do it when he was age appropriate. Of course, had to learn Yiddish to do that. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm 50 years old. You know, I'm ready to play Tevye. You know, so let's jump to that piece. Because Sam, you do have a section in there where it talks about Yiddishkeit and everything else in the book. So, did any of you speak any Yiddish at all at home? You know, anywhere? I mean, was this like, you know, cold? Oh my God! You know, I have to learn an entire new language and learn this whole story. Anything at all? Anybody can just jump in on that.
My grandparents would say like words and phrases every now and then. And I can like read Hebrew. I don't know what it means, but I can read Hebrew. So that was like that's what I had to work with.
I didn't
Raquel?
know that about you. I'm not even Jewish, actually.
You're not? How do I hide this video? Hang on. This comes up.
No, I'm half Sicilian and half Puerto Rican, but I just happen to be okay at German. And I had done a couple shows with the Volksbühne before they did Fiddler. I did a show called America the Golden Land, and then I did another one called Die Geschäftmacherin, which is the sorceress. And it was actually in Romania when we were performing the sorceress that Muscle Didner said, I've got something really, really exciting that's on deck for the Volksbühne, and you guys are going to flip out. It's going to be epic, and it was Fiddler. So
Nice.
it was my third show in Yiddish.
Nice. Sammy?
Same as Jody, you know, like a couple of words, a little bit from Hebrew school, but not really.
Gotcha. Yep. No, I grew up in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. Yiddish was a second language. My house, and someone tells this story. I think it was Muddle that says this in one of his stories. That you know, Yiddish was a language that was spoken in the house when your family didn't want you to understand what it is they were talking about. So I learned to speak Yiddish. So my mom and her parents were Holocaust survivors. They came from Poland. So then they'd start speaking Polish or German. So I'd have to learn words from that just so I can do this. So didn't make it that way, but Yiddish, and then, you know, now teaching it to other people. So now kids can actually hide from their parents and talk about things so they don't understand. So we've come full circle. Sammy, your favorite story from the book. Your favorite event, favorite thing that you were able to portray and tell the world about.
I think my favorite is the first time the five sisters went out and got to know each other better, because that will always just be a night that's like so vivid in my memories. It started with a rehearsal where I was like, what in the world is going on? And ended with all of us sisters feeling very sisterly, and me feeling very inspired and very taken care of. So it was really cool.
Sweet. I was going to ask you if you wanted to read something from the book, but I don't know if you're up for that or not. Like I said, this is unrehearsed. I'm throwing stuff at you here, so I didn't know if there was a section in the book that you wanted to, you know, read for our audience. But you can think about that. I'll come back to you. Sammy, was there something you wanted to read? Just kidding. So one question that isn't answered in the book. So we do know, and we hear all these incredible stories about how the early process came in, and about the 6-week run that got extended. And on the last broadcast, I mentioned Kurt Garitano. Is an old friend of my girls they went to theater camp together and all that such. So we were constantly watching, everything that was going on through Kirk's Facebook posting. And we extended another 2 weeks, and we're extended. And then when it went uptown, it was just amazing. The show closed in January of this year, right before the whole world stopped turning and everything got shut down. The thing that wasn't covered in the book that I don't know and I'd love to know is, what finally brought the show to close after all those extensions in 18 months? I mean, that's a hell of a run, especially for a show in Yiddish. And the extension stuff is just a tribute to not only the story, but the acting job that all of you and your cast did. I mean, it's just incredible. And it's one of those things that will remain as just the bar set really high for other productions going forward. But Sammy, what brought the run finally to an end in January of this year? I'm just curious.
It, it starts with the playbills change from yellow to black and white, and then they told us, they gave us a lot of dates. Like they told us it was gonna end in December or something, and then they told us January, and then it was a possibility for later in January, and then they said, okay, it's really going to end at the beginning of January, but we're going to, it's not the end of it. We're going to go on tours, and there was supposed to be a tour in China that started in, when was that going to start?
Like April.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It came and went.
Wow.
We were there.
You were there? No. I was gonna say what a nightmare that would have been. Oh my
Yeah, no.
God.
We were lucky not to be there. Yeah. But we were excited about it.
It was really crazy because I don't know, I felt like when they told us that we were gonna close and stuff, it was really hopeful in the fact that they were like, we're closing now, but it's not over. We're gonna go on all these tours, and still now it still feels like the show is still gonna have a life, and we all are gonna have some opportunities to still be a part of it. And I don't know, I felt like we were all just so sad that it was closing, but also it's just hard not to be overcome with, oh my gosh, all the joy of how is it possible that we ran for this long, and like how lucky we are that we still get to do it for this long, because we got advance notice of the closing. So
Right. So if Broadway reopened tomorrow and they said we're bringing Fiddler in Yiddish, back to life, are you back? Sammy,
yeah.
are you back? Yeah, everybody's back.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah.
Sweet.
Not even a second of hesitation.
Nice. Sweet. All right, I'm going to go around the table, and then we're going to wrap, because I just realized it's a little after 8 already, and I don't want to keep you ladies any longer. Sammy, I'm going to end with you because we're going to close with you. So Raquel, we'll start with you. So 18 months, your absolute most favorite memory of everything that happened during Fiddler. A person, an event, a thing, something that happened on stage, something that you'll just take with you forever.
That's a great question. I think that my favorite moment is something that I got to do every single night, or like every single show, I should say, at the end of the show. And it was really unique to our production because we're the only production that had the, what is the Torah in Yiddish on the back of the and the oh my gosh, what's it called? Upstage theater. I haven't been there in so long. Upstage, the words of the Torah, and the last moment of the show, it's illuminated, but it's been ripped in half, so it's sewn back up, and what's remaining of the family, Shprinza, Bialka, Tevya, and Golda, are all on stage, and they've got all their things packed, and they're ready to go to America, and the fiddler is in the corner, and they have a moment, Tevya and the fiddler have a moment, they look at each other, and in that moment, the rest of the family was directed to look up at the words in the back of the stage. And in that moment, every single night, I looked at those words and I just thought of what I was grateful for that show specifically. If it was for a person who was there, or for a moment that had happened, or even for something just going on in the world. And I thought about that every single show, and I kept that to myself every single time. And then we looked away and we saw just Tevye walk off and into the light, and we followed him. And that, I lived for that moment every single show, just to make it to that one moment. It was the last moment of the show, and it was just like the most moving part of the whole experience for me. I think about that all the time, that one last moment. I want to do it again. So
Sweet.
hopefully we will be able to soon.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Jody?
I just think I really take the people with me. I just think of every single person, and I have such specific moment and memory and feeling when I think of each person. And it truly is like a big, huge family where either one person might be your crazy uncle and like another person might be your little sister. And every single little passing moment backstage with each person is just like a little, light in my heart. And that's what my favorite part about the whole thing is these people that made it. Because without every single person, the experience would have been a completely different experience. Everybody added to make this one whole perfect show for me, at least. So, yeah.
And I think it was telling because they talk about this in the book, where I guess 5 or 6 or 7 people had left the show, and when they moved it back, when they transferred uptown, the creative staff reached out to everybody and said, "We want you back."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their roles had been covered by either understudies or folks that came in temps to do it, but it was, we're going uptown and we need the mishpacha back together again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in itself is just a very telling thing about how the cast was really truly a family, and without one, the circle's kind of broken, right? So sweet. Thank you. Sammy, favorite moment, favorite takeaway from this experience?
Also the people, and being in school right now, I think of all of the learning and the inspiration from everybody in the show. And I'm in voice lessons, and I'm trying to belt something high, and I'm thinking of Jody singing for Masera up, high in the air. And my voice teacher's trying to get me to sing more soprano stuff, and I think of Raquel and I think of Rachel and how much I love their voices, and just trying to be, that free with my voice like that. And in acting classes, I think of
I love acting lessons. They're my favorite thing.
lessons. I think of Steven and how generous and reactive of an actor he is, and I think of Ben and Rachel in their whole rebuttal scene, and how they make that moment so intense but so private. And there are just so many, Michal, how he brings a different thing to each performance every night he comes in the show. And Kirk, how he makes a connection with everybody, and how he brings that joyous energy. And I take all these lessons with me, and they come up in my head to inspire me when I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, and that's really special to me.
Sweet. Nice. Sammy, I'm going to give you the last words on this. I'm going to let you give your 2-minute elevator pitch to everybody about why they should buy this book. Oh, hang on. Hang on. I didn't know you guys don't ever tell me anything. $19.99. Available right now, or whatever it is, isn't it? Like $20 a thing, right? Something like that. $2 million. Sammy will personally read the book to you for $2 million.
Yes, I will.
Sammy, tell the world why they need to read this book.
This book, I kind of wrote this book because it was also a book that I would have want to have read as an actress, and having my first professional experience in a show. It's for people who love reading memoirs, or people who love reading personal stories, and people who love reading backstage stories. and hearing the whole experience of what it's like from, people like who, this was my first experience and I was the youngest, to people who've, been doing shows for forever, and the real little moments, instead of, there's a bunch about all the celebrities we met and all the cool events we did, but then there's all the little moments of what's actually happening backstage, and why you're seeing this show that has so much love and family in it happens because of all of the love and family backstage, and the way the rehearsals and between shows, everything that's going on.
Sweet. Ladies, I'm going to ask you to stick around, but we are going to say goodnight to everybody else. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to Samantha Hahn, to Jody Snyder, to Raquel Nobile for being our guests tonight on Live at the Theater Talent Showcase. If you'd like to see more of these, please join our Facebook group. Again, it is Theater Talent Showcase on Facebook. This video will be available for rerunning and watch parties afterwards, and we will also be posting it up on our YouTube channel. So as we say goodbye, and I learned this in the book, happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being here.